Welcome to Beyond Number 8, where we explore Agritech innovation in the 21st century. Kiwis are proud of their number 8 wire mentality, their ability to innovate with the most basic materials. But in the 21st century, science and technology have provided tools we could have never imagined, opening up new horizons for primary sector innovation. So where is it headed? What opportunities are beckoning? And how can we make sure New Zealand Agritech is ready and able to take advantage of them? Well, here we explore how we can innovate beyond number 8.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Number 8. I'm Peter Barrowclough, the Chief Executive of Lincoln Agritech. And in this series, my colleagues and I will look at the challenges and opportunities facing New Zealand's agritech sector. Right, so today we are looking at the opportunities for agritech in New Zealand. How can we make the most of it, and how important is it to New Zealand? I'm joined by Nicky Malloy, Business Innovation Advisor for Agritech at Callaghan Innovation, and by Dean Tilyard, Venture Partner for Finestere Ventures. Welcome, Nicky.
Great to be here. Thanks, Peter. Hi, Dean.
Hi, Nicky. Great to see you. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for joining us. So I guess the best place to start is by asking just what is the contribution of agritech to the economy? So, Nicky, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so from the latest TIN report, it's saying that agritech revenue contributes about 1.4 billion, but so much potential for this sector. It's a young sector. It's got great opportunity with a lot of sort of reasonably small-sized businesses who are focusing on New Zealand and have got great opportunity to grow globally. So it's a sector that has huge potential to really contribute a significant amount more.
And then, so let's just tell us about the difference between the export of agricultural commodities and agri-tech, just the differentiation there.
So if we look at the agriculture, it's about producing great food. We produce amazing food from New Zealand, some fantastic commodities, our dairy, our fruit, apples, kiwi fruit, meat. But I think where agritech can really play a part is not only contributing to the way we grow our food in a really sustainable way, but also contributing to our economy and offering some significant economic returns for New Zealand. Better jobs, great technology that's developed that helps the world, it helps feed the world as well and grow great food around the world, and then, really contribute both sort of socially, economically, and contribute back to our agriculture sector. So it's, great opportunities.
Great. So, Dean, that brings me to you. Finestere is a company that's got a world-class vision and a worldwide vision. So, how do you see the trends in agritech? What has New Zealand got to offer and some of those global challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Look, I think you touched on a good point about New Zealand's, world leadership in commodity production or agricultural production. To me, that gives us an unfair advantage for agritech to produce that from New Zealand. And you've got some advantages here in New Zealand that you don't have elsewhere. You can walk into any boardroom around the world and say you're into agritech from New Zealand. And there's a plausibility right from the start that you might know what you're talking about. That's a big help. We've got access to testing locally, horticulture right through to animal production. We've got foundational science. We can work quite cost effectively at that stage. So there are some great advantages from developing agritech out of New Zealand, and a lot of that's afforded by our leadership in agricultural production.
So you touched on plausibility. What are the real advantages we have here in agritech, and can you give us a couple of examples of companies that are really pushing it out there?
Look, I think we have some real leadership. There's a bit of a dichotomy there. If we look at it, we've got some real established players that have done fantastically. Gallagher's, been a great example, leadership position for 50 years in a category. And then, as Nicky mentioned, we've got a whole swathe of young companies that have started to come through. And this agritech is still reasonably new. And we know from investment levels globally, the investment last year in agritech had grown 20 times over a decade. So depending on what trend you go, it's about $10 billion a year. New Zealand's still not getting much of that landing here, and we've got to do better at that. But we look at companies that are doing category-leading stuff, Halter, Argensons, wireless fencing, all the companies in that category are coming out of New Zealand. We can see Halter doing the testing in New Zealand. It's providing that customer feedback loop really, really early, and then they will look to scale offshore. Company I'm involved in and really proud to be involved with is Biolumic, that's using its knowledge of lights and plants. It's doing its R&D in New Zealand. It's doing that cost effectively. It's able to attract the talent, the R&D talent that it requires. And then it's building all its market side into the US, and New Zealand plays a really key part in that platform. So there are some advantages, but, that doesn't stop the disciplines of, what you need in the technology area, which is to think global, to try and access those markets as early as possible so that you can get insights, start the process of product market fit. And you've got to try and do that very, 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 very quickly. And, while we have some advantages, we are still a long way away from those global markets. So we need our companies to work to double down on that and to really reach out to larger international markets.
Yeah, so Nicky, you would see a lot of, in your role, a lot of those, newer, younger companies that are coming through. Are they thinking global from day one? Have we got the mindset in New Zealand for that?
Yeah, so we've got it at Callaghan, around about 350 Agritech businesses that we see as, in the Callaghan world, they're R&D innovators, so strong R&D focused businesses. And, a few of those, like Dean mentioned, the Gallagher's, LICs, that are sort of the $100 million plus. So there's only a very few of those. We've got a whole tier of sort of another small group that sits between the $50 to $100 million mark. And we just from some work we've done, around 70 to 80% with revenues of less than $5 million. And so it's those companies, and that's, there's a massive opportunity. And the reason they're sitting at that level is they're only focused on New Zealand and maybe one market like Australia or so they're only really focusing on one market. So to grow that 70 to 80% to, up to the 50, the 100 and further up, it's only going to come at a global, looking at global opportunities. And that brings back to New Zealand. If they're growing bigger, then they're bringing greater value back in terms of the Agritech, the tech they're delivering back into New Zealand as well. So it's an awesome opportunity that we've got, but how do we get that big tier of companies thinking globally from day one rather than what I say is year 7? So it takes them to develop their tech in New Zealand and then they look offshore. So it'd be great if they were doing that really early on and using New Zealand as a test bed and testing with our amazing farmers and growers, and then taking that tech offshore and then working with partners offshore a lot earlier. So they're doing almost dual testing with a global offshore partner and a New Zealand partner. And that's an amazing opportunity we've got with New Zealand, is just fantastic farmers and growers that are willing to be the testers and the developers and work alongside our tech companies and then taking that tech offshore. So, yeah, I think there's lots of great things we can do. We just need to push harder, with these earlier stage businesses and get them really ready earlier for those global opportunities.
Yeah, so Dean, you're seeing some of these startups, you're seeing these young people with incredible talent. People used to say that capital was short, but there's a lot of venture capital around at the moment. So what is it? How do you get across the desire, the skill set, the willingness to give it a crack at a global scale? What do you do when you're mentoring your companies that you're investing in?
Great question. Look, I think a first observation is it's the quality of startups and the quality of entrepreneurs that are starting companies is improving. We're seeing greater diversity, more awareness about the process of startups. So we're definitely seeing global. It isn't just about capital, but capital is really important. And it's important that companies have capital that's connected and that can really aid and abet their market and accelerate them into the market. It's about advisors. It's about spending time in the market. It's about, lots of visits to the Kuru Lounge in Auckland, which has been absent for the last couple of years. But, we need to get back on the planes and we need to get out there. It takes some time to build that market. I think there is a little bit of a danger because we have agriculture on our doorstep, small companies, not a lot of resources, that can be the focus. And what we also know is that, whatever you're developing for New Zealand animal or horticultural management, it's going to have to be slightly different for other markets, particularly away from the pastoral-based. All that takes time and effort. So companies got to be sufficiently resourced. That's having a reasonable capital plan that allows them to have, the BD or the CEO offshore actually spending time in market. So, look, I see the ambition starting to come through. It definitely has moved in my time being involved with New Zealand startups. So it just gets better and better. We just need to do more. I think we're all really clear on what we need to do, but we need to get down and execute.
What about the opportunity for, say, what might be a small crop in New Zealand, wheat production, 200,000 tonnes of arable production in New Zealand. Australia across the ditch, 22 million tonnes. So entrepreneurs seeing the opportunity, okay, it's a small crop in New Zealand, but if I can prove it here, I can scale it in a much bigger crop, or opportunity offshore.
Look, I think they definitely do. And that's a great example. It has to be you don't have to make all decisions earlier on in your technical and market development. You need to do both. You need to be understanding the New Zealand market and what that requires, because you can do testing there. You can get, some speed into the technical development, but you also need to be talking to the market, and that's a constant process. That's a process that goes on and will be there for the rest of the company's life. So I think we see the same in horticulture. The smaller markets that are in New Zealand for horticulture, you need to be able to get to the bigger markets. We've seen examples of companies doing that in apples and getting to Washington State and so on.
I think some of it is the fact that our companies are so lean at the start, and it's the having those conversations. So you're not just developing, you're not just focusing on your product, but you're thinking, a lot wider earlier, and having that connecting out to offshore growers and having those connections and working out what those connection pathways are, so that as you're developing your tech, you're also talking to your offshore potential early adopter in another market, and testing and validating those conversations. So it's I think the leanness of some of our companies, and the fact that often they're less than 20 people, but they can be very often less than 10, and sometimes 1 or 2 people, is really hard to be developing product, developing markets, international conversations, doing everything. So that path to how you're going to grow and scale, and looking at that a lot earlier from your investment, who are the people in your business, what's your role in the business as a founder, and how are you going to bring people around you with the right roles and skill sets, access to advisors, using your networks of the Callaghans, the NZTEs, the Sprout network, Sprout accelerators, and really understanding the path and the journey that you're going to go on and how you're going to intersect with that. It's a lot for our early stage businesses that are lean to think about, but so important. Yeah.
I think so. Touched on a key point there, and deliberately why we've called this Beyond Number 8. It's not about the New Zealand people doing everything themselves now with a piece of Number 8 wire. You need all of those skill sets. You need that global vision. You need those advisors. You need that ecosystem that you can tap into, and that's why we're talking about Beyond Number 8 wire. If we're going to have globally scaled agritech opportunities in this country, then we need to think. We need to think like global experts as well. So we've recently at Lincoln Agritech had a couple of commercial successes, a licensing of a precision irrigation technology to an Israeli company that's working in the US. So that was all done during the pandemic over Zoom, so that was good. What are some of the other examples that either of you have seen of companies that are doing really well and about to make a significant contribution to Agritech exports?
Well, I think we haven't talked about the established ones, and there's been mention of those, and they'll continue to grow and get better. If we go back to the startups, I think we're at a really interesting point that our first startups, the first cohorts are coming through that have been well funded and are now starting to transition from, development to product to sales and to scaling. So, I mentioned one earlier on, Halter, Biolumic, Robotics Plus. These to me are the leaders there. They've raised a large amount of capital. And now they're doing that transition. And when we transition to scaling, I think it's the number that Nicky mentioned, how do we get $100 million plus startups here? That really has to be the goal. That's going to create the types of impact that we want in our communities. That's another whole playbook that is required beyond securing that initial capital, beyond getting your dev plans right, but that transition, how do you put sales infrastructure overseas? How do you keep growing with your customers? So look, I think those first cohorts, those types of companies that I've mentioned, they're coming through. So I think the next 3 to 5 years is really exciting. And if we were doing this in 3 to 5 years' time, I think we will be sitting down talking about those startups that have scaled and are starting to make impact with all the spin-offs that we know that come from those types of companies.
Yeah, you're dead right. Nicky, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I think the one that Lincoln Agritech has done, Irricad, and what's happened there with the partnering with the Israeli company, and the multiple partnering that's been done. So you're not just one offering, you're now multiple offerings within one is really valuable. So we're seeing that with the likes of Figured and Zero. Tatau is partnering with PaySource. So again, we're getting multiple companies that are partnering together. They've got unique offerings in a certain area, and they're expanding those with other unique companies and pulling together a really strong offering together. There's, the likes of Hector that have gone offshore and established themselves in Washington State from really early on, and they're now growing into multiple markets. So that's a great example of a company that's really got out there. I think Biolumic did that as well. They got out into an offshore market really early on, and they're now growing really strong R&D teams in New Zealand, but have got, people in market and head offices and CEOs that are now based in markets, so that are using the offshore network to grow their sales and grow their distribution, but they're using New Zealand as an R&D base. And some of these companies, Robotics Plus, others that have got 70 to 80 people within their sort of software development teams. That's really high-paying, skilled jobs based in New Zealand with a global reach. So there's some great examples of some really good companies growing in really different ways, partnering, really, thinking about their global, how they're getting offshore globally, and thinking about things like, how do they integrate versus be the integrator, and thinking about what their value proposition is as they get offshore, and how they're going to do that. Are they going to be a New Zealand manufacturer, or are they going to use partnerships to manufacture? So it's also, seeing these companies really thinking about their value propositions, who they are, what their networks need to look like to be international. So, and I think using those examples and really understanding how they've done it for the younger companies that are coming through to sort of think about what that model looks like for their journey is adding value back into our agritech sector.
Great, thanks, Nicky. And there's a lot to think about there in terms of being successful, but the opportunity really exists. So, in a few words, Dean, how excited are you about the Agritech opportunity for New Zealand?
Well, look, I think it's awesome. I'm really pumped about it. We've come a long way, and the signposts about where we've got to go to are clearer. So, look, I think it's a magic place to be. I enjoy being involved in investment. I enjoy being involved in backing New Zealand companies, and the quality's improving. So, yeah, I get up with a smile on my face every day, Peter.
How about you, Nicky? How do you see the opportunity?
Yeah, from a sector, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago that I entered, and it was in an infancy of drones and and apps has now become, a really meaningful sector of offering some long-term, world-changing solutions that are going to impact the environment, help New Zealand grow as a country, and being seen as a world leader. So I think it's a sector that's set for awesomeness, and it's a really exciting place to work with.
I've loved working in the Agritech sector, most of my career, and I just get excited about it every day, so it's hard to call it work. So, look, Dean, thanks very much for joining us today, and Nicky, thanks very much for joining us. Very insightful, and, glad to be working with you guys, trying to make, the New Zealand Agritech sector one of the leading export examples in the country.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Number 8, presented by Lincoln Agritech. To find out more about Lincoln Agritech, visit lincolnagritech.co.nz. Subscribe to our newsletter in the podcast description below, or find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, and keep up to date with our latest science and innovation. Until the next episode, when we'll continue exploring Beyond Number 8.